Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand, and can I say it's the sunny edition of the Todd Veinotte Show on a Tuesday? It was sunny there for a moment. I think the sun's peeking through the clouds right now as we get through the tail end of this latest tussle that we've had with Mother Nature as we dig out and we see the work crews out there in force, plowing streets and plowing off sidewalks and trying to get things back to as normal as we can get it. But I think the question of the day, and I've asked a number of people around the radio station here this morning this question, and I kind of get that, that giggle response. You get the that one. Are you sick of shoveling yet? Right? We had storm last Monday, then we had Sunday into Monday, and we had another storm this past Sunday into Monday. And if you were listening to our show yesterday when we had our meteorologist, Alistair Alders, on the air, there is a potential for another storm to happen Sunday into Monday. So we may not be done with the shoveling just yet. Snow day for thousands of children and university students right across Nova Scotia today, including here in HRCE. It was interesting yesterday, and the weather wasn't as fair as it is today. On my drive home after the show yesterday, I saw a number of kids walking down the sidewalk, or what was the semblance of a sidewalk, with their toboggans. So kids were taking advantage of that snow day, as children have been taking advantage of snow days for several generations now, and finding a hill and going tobogganing. And I will suggest today's weather is looking a little even better than yesterday. So I'm going to assume that the local tobogganing areas in the city will be busy today with children out there enjoying snow days. When I was growing up, and I think I've talked about this before, but when I was growing up, I came to despise snow days because the rule in my house was if it's a snow day, you get up and you go to work with Dad. Because my father worked at a machine shop, and I would go and sweep the floors and whatever else. So there was no sleeping in and then going tobogganing and snowball fights or street hockey or ice hockey or whatever. It was to work. So when the forecast started to look to be a snow day, I was like, oh, I just want to go to school. And it's interesting. I was out yesterday again on my way home, and I saw a maintenance guy that was working away, and it looked like he had a couple of his kids with him doing that very same thing for them to teach them a little bit of what it's like to go to work during a snow day. So it's still happening today, and it made me smile when I saw that. The kids weren't smiling, I'll tell you that much. They were looked like they were pretty down in the dumps, wanted to be on those toboggans. But anyway, if you're heading out tobogganing today, be safe, right? And let's not break any arms or legs or worse. The parking ban remains in effect tonight. We just got the update from HRM, so it'll be a third consecutive day that you're unable to park your car on a street here in the city from 1 until 6 a.m., so that can allow for snow removal. We're going to connect up with HRM a little bit later in the show today, about 30 minutes time or so, and get an update on the snow clearing operations and where we are at and where we're going, and a little bit more detail on the need for this third consecutive parking ban. I mean, the main streets, they look pretty good. At least on my drive in this morning, they look pretty good. They were black. The salt is working. If you remember back a month or so ago, I had Dr. Rob Thacker, who, by the way, is on the show today later on, and we'll, of course, have him answer your science-related questions. And we debated the science of salt, and I lost. And it was a good example of road salt and temperatures yesterday, right? It didn't seem like the plows got ahead of the snow yesterday. There was a constant light snowfall throughout the day, but it was that slushy, just difficult to maneuver in kind of snow that was on the roads, and it just couldn't seem to get rid of it. This morning, early on, my colleagues telling me driving in this morning for the morning show around 4, the roads were pretty slippery. But now the salt is managing to catch up. I'm looking out the window again at Roby Street, and we're seeing black parts of that road, so it won't be long before that gets pushed off to the side and we can get back to what is a semblance of normalcy around here. I did see some tickets being handed out. I did see some cars parked illegal. I guess it is illegally during the snow ban, and saw some tickets on windshields as people were cleaning off their cars today. So it does look like the municipality was out and enforcing the ban. I think I saw on the news last night. I watched the television news, and I think I saw or heard somewhere around 500 tickets were issued on Sunday into Monday. And I think it was maybe a half a dozen or so cars were towed. Maybe we'll get an update on that when we connect up with the HRM's communications department later in the show today and get an update on where we're at. City Council will be busy. They are going to certainly earn their salaries today. They have a council meeting that's getting underway this hour, and that will go right until 6 o'clock tonight. And my goodness, there are a number of thorny issues that are on the agenda this time around, I will suggest. One of them is something that has been raised on this program on occasion, and that is it's being called a fairness issue with the city's taxi companies and the ride-sharing companies. They're going to debate maybe looking at some more oversight for the Ubers and the U-Rides and the Lyfts of the world, and try to level the playing field perhaps with the taxi world. And in my world, when you start talking about more oversight, that means more money, and that means that you and I are going to pay more for the ride-sharing services that we have been using here for the last couple of years. But I think the biggest thing on the agenda today is the return of a report that was asked for last year by then Deputy Mayor Tony Mancini, who wanted city staff to go back and take a look at the so-called gold-plated AAA bike lanes that we have in HRM to see if there was any way we could perhaps save some money on that, and taking a look at the report yesterday and again this morning. This is just my opinion on it, but I'm a little disappointed in the results. The report came back with, I think it was $4.7 million in savings on a $66 million bill that's remaining. The report says the total cost to connect up all of the city's AAA bike lanes is $82 million and change. We've already set up, I think it was 50, I want to say 58% are complete. And the remaining bill is $66 million. And of that, the city staffers that studied this were only able to come up with $4.7 million. And on a regular day, if somebody came to city council and said, "Hey, look, we're able to save $4.7 million," that would be a win, I would suggest. But on a $66 million project, $4 million or $4.5 million it's a start, but isn't significant, at least in my opinion. Anyway, council will be digging into that report later today as part of their council meeting. Then tonight at 6 o'clock, we get the resumption of the budget committee, and that means the councilors that are on that committee, which is them all, will be sitting around the table. They've got the books, they've got the documents, they've got the asks from all of the city departments. This after pre-budget consultations saw that rate increase from, what was it, 5 or 10.6% or 10.5 to or 10.4 to 10.9, and now is the pencil sharpening subject. Was disappointed yesterday to hear from our counselors of the hot seat when I asked them what's the first thing that you're going to cut out of the budget. Neither of them had an answer, saying that they wanted to hear the presentations from the departments and their staff. Now, I don't know about you, but I, in my capacity here at the radio station, attend budget meetings annually, and and other meetings. And normally before I go to the meeting, and granted, yesterday was Monday, the budget meeting wasn't until Tuesday, so they had the whole day yesterday to go through the documents. But I always have a list of things that, that are on the top of my scratch pad to look at to perhaps be the start of trying to whittle down the budget. Neither of the councillors could give me that list yesterday, and I was disappointed to hear that. So and again, I will reiterate, the meeting is at 6 o'clock tonight at City Hall. These meetings, folks, are open to the public, and I know there are many of you that call the show and listen to the show and are worried about this tax increase, this potential tax increase, and are worried about spending. Here's an opportunity for you to go and partake in the budgeting process. They're open to the public. You can go there, or you can do what like I'm going to do. I'm going to eat my supper in front of my television tonight and watch at least the first couple hours of the budget debate before the curling starts. And I'm going to watch the curling because Nova Scotia is doing us proud out at the Scotties in Mississauga, are they not? If you're not following the Women's Curling Championships, you don't know that Nova Scotia has not only one, but two teams at the Scotties this year. And, of course, Christina Black and her foursome we got familiar with as they joined the program, and we watched them at the curling trials, finish second to Rachel Holman here in Halifax. Well, they're in Mississauga and representing the province, and are second in their pool, in Pool B. They're 3-1. Big win yesterday evening. Today they're on the ice, as a matter of fact, right now, against Northern Ontario and Krista Scharf. That game is an important game for both. You don't want to get anywhere near 2 or even 3 losses, and Northern Ontario right now at 2-2. And then Christina will take the afternoon off, and then tonight at 8 o'clock we'll be facing New Brunswick. So we'll be watching for that. Also, Taylor Stevens, who was representing Nova Scotia at the event, is on the other side of the draw in Pool A and is currently sitting in third spot at 2-2. They will face the Northwest Territories today at 3 o'clock. So go Nova Scotia, go. It's nice to see our province being represented by two teams. Normally it's Ontario and Manitoba or Alberta that has these multiple teams, and they do. But Christina and Taylor both doing the Blue Nosers proud, I will say, at the Scotties, and we'll watch them through the remainder of the week. We're going to take our first break here on the program today, and when we come back, a conversation about the doctor wait list, the need a Family Practice Registry. The province yesterday announcing that they're going to bring back more information with regards to that list and how many people are on it. And we're going to have a conversation with the Health and Wellness Minister for the province of Nova Scotia. Michelle Thompson will be your guest when we return. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Hope you're having a fantastic day. And I know many Nova Scotians have been watching the numbers of people out there that are looking for a family doctor that are part of the need a Family Practice Registry, and saw yesterday that the province is changing up the way that the data that they collect on this is presented to us as Nova Scotians. And I'm very pleased to welcome to the show to tell us a little bit about what we're going to see here moving forward is the Health and Wellness Minister, and that is Michelle Thompson. Minister Thompson, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much.
I guess the first question is what's changed in the last 18 months to allow you to make this change to the registry list?
Yeah, it's a great question. So over the last 18 months, there's been a very significant amount of work done to validate the list. And what that really means is that when this process began in around July of 2024, there were roughly 160,000 people on the list. And every individual over those 18 months has been contacted in person by a team at Nova Scotia Health to do a couple of things. Number one, validate that they still require care, that they still don't have a primary care provider. So perhaps someone has found someone on their own. Sometimes people would put their names on the registry prematurely because they heard their clinician was retiring and they wanted to get themselves on the registry. And so that work has been done. We understand now more about the health of the individuals on the registry, so a health questionnaire has been added. And really, the registry has become a support and patient management tool to help people access care if they are on the registry, but also to very intentionally attach people to a primary care provider and a practice as they move off of the registry.
So the significant drop in the number of people or persons that were on this list from over was 150,000, I think you said, to about 66,000 now is this the most accurate number that we can get?
It absolutely is, and it reflects people who have moved off the registry because they've been attached to a primary care provider. Sometimes it recognizes people who maybe have been on there a couple of times, some people who are on there prematurely. So every month we currently report the number of people, the net gain, so who's come off and who's come on, like what the actual number is, kind of on the ins and the outs, and the percentage of people in Nova Scotia who are unattached. And through this validation work and through questions from individuals and understanding what Nova Scotians want, that reporting process and structure will change. And the first public reporting in the new system will take place in April of this year.
Minister Thompson, would it be safe to say that the drop in the numbers of people on the list now is been administrative? It's been paper stuff. It's been accounting, and there hasn't been a significant impact in the number that have come off that list because of an increase in family doctors?
No, actually, it's a little bit of everything, but actually the recruitment has been significant, and I'm sorry I don't have the exact number in front of me about the number of family practitioners, but we've done an incredible amount of work and investment in increasing our primary care workforce. So increasing the number of seats in our medical schools and opening a medical campus in Cape Breton. Internationally educated graduates now come in and have very different pathways to working very closely with the College of Physicians and Surgeons and registered nurses for nurse practitioners as well. And now we have what we call the PACE Clinic. So it's a Physician Assessment Center of Excellence where mid-career physicians can come into Nova Scotia and be assessed while providing primary care to Nova Scotians, and really as early as 12 weeks be licensed. And we also passed legislation a couple of years ago so that if you're a registered health professional in good standing anywhere in Canada, you can actually come and register immediately in Nova Scotia and start to work with us. So it does reflect some administrative work that's happened, there's no question. But it also reflects the incredible amount of work and investment that's happened in recruiting our workforce. The other thing I'd just like to note as well, when we talk about people who, put themselves prematurely on the list because they've heard their clinician is retiring, through this validation process and through working with primary care providers, there's also been over 50,000 Nova Scotians who have been kept off the list because when they say my physician is or my nurse practitioner is retiring, there's actually a plan in place. So those individuals never need to go on the list. This team is able to say, actually, we have identified a clinician who's going to come in and fill that spot when your current clinician retires, and you actually don't need to go on the list at all because we have a plan for you.
Mr. Thompson, you may not have the number in front of you, and I understand that, but is it a net? Have we seen a net gain of new doctors, new nurse practitioners in the period that this list has been updated?
We have, and we've seen a significant number, not only in primary care providers, but also in specialists as well, and in nurse practitioners. And certainly we can send that to you, and maybe you could announce it in a few minutes. I should have had that.
Sure.
I'm sorry, but we really have invested. We have very competitive contracts for physicians and nurse practitioners and other healthcare workers. This is a really great place to work. Our scopes of practice have expanded. So pharmacists, as an example, and nurse practitioner have some of the broadest scopes of practice, meaning that they are allowed to do the most things with their education in order to care for patients across the country. So we're really proud of the work we've done, and we've worked very closely with healthcare providers. The Premier has a regular summit where we hear from different health professionals. We started with a Speak Up for Healthcare tour, and so We really walk this path with healthcare providers to help us understand how we can support them in caring for Nova Scotians to the best and highest of their ability.
66,000 is still a rather large number here in Nova Scotia, given our population, Minister. Where do we go from here? How do we move that number towards zero?
So, sorry, just texting me the numbers there. So they're listening. But so we have about 6.3% of Nova Scotians who are unattached, which means over 93% of Nova Scotians are attached to a primary care provider. And I have deep sympathy and empathy for the people who are still on that registry, and I want them to know that we're going to continue to recruit and continue to find ways to attach them to a care provider. And I also want to give a shout out to the folks who are working so hard at Department of Health, Nova Scotia Health, IWK, because really Nova Scotia should be very proud of the work that's happened and the success we've had in recruitment, looking at different innovative ways to provide care. So even if you're unattached, you have a whole suite of services that are available to you to make sure that you have access to primary care providers, you have unlimited virtual care. There are primary care clinics who will see you in person. If you go on the registry and you have a time-sensitive condition like pregnancy, through this navigation program, we can connect you to prenatal care as an example. So I really would encourage anyone who isn't attached to put themselves on that registry, because we can support that healthcare journey while we find you a permanent primary care provider.
But then that's great, and all those services are well used. I know I've used them myself, but I can tell you that been on that list for well over 2 years and getting off of it it's a large weight off your shoulders, and there are still 66,000 who don't have a doctor. What can your government do to get them one?
So just exactly what we're going to keep doing. We're going to, we have competitive contracts. We are recruiting. We recently opened that PACE, that Center of Excellence to assess new physicians. We have a lot of interest in Nova Scotia. We're building our workforce through our own, growing our own workforce with our universities, bringing people in from outside of Canada, but also from other provinces when people want to resettle here. So that work will continue. The contract that we negotiated with physicians incentivizes primary care providers to see people outside of regular office hours. And so it also incentivizes people to take on more patients. But I do want people to know on that registry, there is options for people to receive care. And in these primary care clinics, while we wait for a permanent provider for you, if you have a condition that needs to be seen in person, you can go there after a virtual care appointment. And in some cases, if you have a condition that needs ongoing and regular management, that clinic will continue to follow you and make sure that you have the primary care you require until a permanent clinician is assigned to you. So you still do get the care that's required. And so I just would encourage folks not to be discouraged. We continue to recruit, and we know that there are places that are a little bit harder to recruit to in parts of our province. And so we work really intentionally with municipalities, with recruitment teams locally, community-based and volunteer organizations to really look at those gaps and see how best we can settle people who want to come and live and work in Nova Scotia.
Mr. Thompson, we've only got about 45 seconds left or so. Do you think in our lifetimes that we're ever going to see that list get to zero?
I don't think we'll see it get to zero, and this is why. I think there will be people who always move into Nova Scotia who will need, a single door to come through and identify and put their hand up and say, we need primary care and we need help to find, a person to care for us. We are still keeping up with some retirements, certainly. Our goal has always been to get the unattached rate to roughly 5%. We also know that sometimes there are people who are unattached, and for various reasons, where they are in their stage of life or in their stage of health, they don't really want necessarily, they don't feel they need a regular provider. Options like virtual care or the primary care clinics or urgent treatment centers help them with the conditions they have. But when their or if their health changes, they need a door as well to say, actually, I do need a primary care provider now, and I want that ongoing and regular relationship. So this really is a navigation and patient support tool, and we think it's very, very valuable. And there's lots of different idiosyncrasies about why people, are or are not on that list. And so we're going to continue with this so that people always have the option.
Minister Thompson, appreciate your time this morning.
Great. Thanks so much.
That is the Health and Wellness Minister for the province of Nova Scotia, Michelle Thompson. Time for an update on the news. On the other side of it, we'll get an update from HRM on the effort to clear the snow from this weekend storm. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Said it right off the top of the show this morning, and I will ask again as I look out the window and I see more flurries and the sun trying to come through in a typical Nova Scotia winter. Are you getting sick of shoveling yet? I was out for my daily walk after work yesterday and wandering through the neighborhoods on and I will say on plowed sidewalks. At least in my neighborhood, they were plowed. And saw a lot of people at the end of their driveways growling at the plow operator who had filled their freshly shoveled driveway up again. And on my way in this morning, those same driveways again filled with plow leftovers, as I like to call them. So the plowing continues, the shovel continues, the dig out continues. So where exactly are we at with regards to snow removal from this latest storm? We connect up now with City Hall and HRM's Communications Department and Senior Communications Advisor, and I might add, 95.7 alumni, and that's Brynn Budden. Brynn, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. How are you?
I'm not doing too bad. I hear you're working from home, so have you not been plowed out yet?
No, we've been plowed out. Now, I'm pretty far outside of the city, so we have, a guy up the road who plows out our driveway.
Fair enough.
And I'm kind of off of a main route. But, it's we got a lot of snow, and there was a big gap in between two pretty heavy bands of it. So the cleanup certainly continues.
Where are we at? Do we have the latest on where we're at in the cleanup?
Yeah, the cleanup's going really well. I mean, all things considered, we're used to getting, a big mix of precipitation when storms hit. So thankfully, we're just dealing with light, fluffy snow. Crews actually made a lot of good progress yesterday, making most of the main routes passable and even getting into some residential areas in the priority 2 areas. But then that heavy dumping overnight has kind of set us back slightly. So trucks had to go back to the main roads this morning. And so we're kind of working back up now.
Brynn, for the benefit of our listeners who may not understand how it all works, can you explain the difference between a priority 1 and a priority 2?
I can. So roads, basically 12 hours is the snow clearing timeline for priority 1 corridor. So these are the main roads and bus routes. Think of all like the main routes you can think of in HRM, like Barrington, et cetera. And then basically for the residential streets or any others that are considered priority 2, so not these big main roads with bus routes, et cetera, they'd be priority 2, and that's about 24 hours before you would see those cleared. Yeah. So there's just about a 12-hour difference between getting to both areas. So
have we declared an end to this event yet, or is that still happening?
Yes, no, that we did declare an end around 9:30 this morning. Would be our declared end. So you can go to halifax.ca and people are able to view the clearing timelines for their area.
So if I live on a priority 2 street, I can expect it to be cleared between 9 o'clock this morning and 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Exactly.
That makes more sense. The parking ban, Brynn, is in effect for a third day. Can you explain what it is and why we need it?
It is in effect for a third day, and we do recognize how inconvenient this can be to secure off-street parking so randomly sometimes. And to have it in effect for 3 days is a lot. Usually it's not in effect for this long. The first night that it was in effect, we ended up issuing 507 parking ban tickets to vehicles that weren't complying, and 11 vehicles were actually seized that night as well. So that perhaps put a damper in the cleanup on the first night it was put in. We basically need cars to be off the road so that we can clear the snow safely and efficiently. The biggest thing being safety, making room for emergency vehicles to get through at all times. So just, hopefully it's one more night. I don't make the call on the parking ban, but hopefully if we all get our crews or get our cars off the road, crews can make some really good progress today because the weather does seem to be getting nicer out and seeing some sun.
Yeah, no doubt. And sun's a good thing. So 507 tickets the first night, obviously still tabulating last night's?
Yes, I just reached out for that number, actually. I didn't get it in time for our chat, but I can email that to you.
Very good. For anybody out there, Brynn, who has a concern, a question about their street, their sidewalk, what's the best way? Is the city site? Is it 311? Is it both?
Our website is very good. So if you haven't been on halifax.ca, you can go on there, and there's a lot of resources that a lot of people are unaware of. Would also recommend subscribing to HFX Alert, which is the municipality's own mass notification system. So we send the alerts out about the parking ban, and that way you always know if it's in place. So it's a good time to subscribe to that. And yeah, halifax.ca if you want to check out online to find the answer to your question, or you can also always call 311, which is another really great resource.
So bottom line is priority streets getting good. Secondary streets will be done by this time tomorrow.
Yes.
All right.
Let us hope.
Let us hope. Brynn, I appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Dan.
That is Brynn Budden, Senior Communications Advisor with the city, with the municipality, with HRM. It's not a lot of fun when you're on those secondary streets and you're still 24 hours out from being cleared curb to curb. I had a conversation with some colleagues this morning who some are in Lower Sackville and some in other parts of the city where the plows have been through once, but not quite enough, and are working from home today. So it's never fun. It's never easy, and I know that many of you have concerns about the way that snow is removed here in HRM. Might be something you want to talk about when we open up the telephone lines. That's going to happen in about 20 minutes' time here on the program when we have our Tuesday open hour, and there's plenty of stuff to talk about with the budget deliberations underway, and the bike lane report, which I know many of you are very passionate about, and of course with the snow removal, and a lot of you are looking after your kids today because it was yet another snow day for HRCE. It doesn't happen very often here, and I will give the school board or the Center for Excellence or Education it's props that it doesn't happen often in HRCE that we have 2 consecutive days of school closures, and they're normally pretty good at getting the youngsters' backsides into seats at school. So I know it puts a lot of parents out. I know it puts a lot of caregivers out when these things happen. And that parking ban, I understand the need for it, and I understand how it works and why it works, but I can tell you, in a past life, having been an on-street parker, I am no longer, but I was. It is not fun to try and find a place to park, particularly for 3 days in a row. So hopefully, HRM crews get their job done, get the work done, and we can get back to a normal January day, and we can hold the weather prognosticator in Shubenacadie by the name of Sam. We can hold her to account and see if we can get this winter done quicker. Time to stop. Time to take another break here on the program. And on the other side of it, the show continues. It is doesn't take long to see that our young people are vaping an awful lot. It used to be that you walked by a school, a secondary school perhaps, a high school, and you'd see a bunch of kids out on the sidewalk huddled around a cigarette. Now they have their vapes in their pockets, and it seems to be growing into what could be an epidemic. In fact, it's being called by some an epidemic in our schools. A conversation with the Canadian Cancer Society about youth vaping in Nova Scotia when we return. You are listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Back in minutes. All right, welcome back. You all know that the last 2 weeks I was on vacation, and I got a chance to do a lot of stuff during the day, which I don't normally get to do often, which was nice. And for the first week anyway, it was the weather was cooperating, so I managed to get out and get into some areas of HRM that I haven't been into a while, and got some exercise done. And as I mentioned before the break, out for a walk, walking by an area high school, and What has been since I think high schools have been invented was, the group of kids that are sitting on they were sitting on a concrete wall, as a matter of fact, just on the edge of the property of the high school, and you saw these great big plumes of smoke and steam that were rising above them, and as I mentioned before, the break in my day, it was what kids were huddling around a cigarette, but these kids, at least the ones I saw, weren't doing that. They were holding on to their various shapes and forms of vaping devices, and despite the fact that they're unable to legally purchase, at least most of them, legally purchase vaping equipment, Nova Scotia has the highest rate in Canada when it comes to the use of those vaping products. Very pleased to welcome to the show today for some perspective on this, Senior Manager of Advocacy and Strategic Initiatives with the Canadian Cancer Society, and that's Heather Mulligan. Heather, how are you?
I'm good. How are you this morning?
You don't have to go very far to find somebody of that high school age that is using one of these devices.
Oh, no, you don't. And unfortunately, we're hearing stories of even as young as middle school age youth getting their hands on these vaping products and other nicotine products. And so, it's pause for concern and alarm, and we're hoping to see some really deliberate action from the government.
And I know smoking is probably still a thing, but has vaping kind of taken over that I guess the method of choice?
Yeah, so tobacco does remain the leading cause preventable disease and deaths in Nova Scotia. Tragically, it takes 1,800 Nova Scotians from us each year. And beyond that human toll, it costs our healthcare system $210 million in direct healthcare costs. That's things like cancer treatment, hospitalizations, lung disease, heart disease, stroke. We have seen progress on smoking. So 14% of Nova Scotians continue to smoke. That's compared to nearly 50% in 1965. So we've made some progress. But what we're seeing is in Nova Scotia, more than half, 55% of young people have tried vaping at least once. And we have the highest rates of youth vaping in Canada when you compare it to like 9% a decade ago. So there's an alarming trend that we're seeing, and we need to really kick the habit and make sure that our young people in this province are set up for success.
Heather, I've never tried vaping. I'm a reformed smoker for about 2 decades now, and I'm worried that it'll put me back off the wagon. That all being said, people that I know that do it say that it's safer than smoking cigarettes.
Safer isn't safe. And what we have to remember is we're talking about a product, nicotine, which in a young, growing person has significant health harms. It not only affects brain development and cardiovascular health, but it also has a number of other side effects. Even Nova Scotia, we are having researchers here looking at the long-term effects of prolonged vaping use. And so, when you compare it to traditional smoking, if you are a long-term smoker and you are using vaping products for cessation, that's one approach. But even recently, there is new evidence coming out and debunking vaping as a cessation tool. So we're gathering more and more evidence and information every day. But what we do know, as a matter of fact, is that nicotine is not healthy and is not good for a young developing person. And we need to take deliberate action to prevent not only young people getting their hands on these products, but equipping them with the tools to quit if they do find themselves in a position to start using. And really, we need to start bringing these rates down.
More than half of Nova Scotia's youth say they've tried these products, Heather. How do we educate? I mean, this is the most educated group, this cohort that we've seen with all the information that's out there. How do we convince them to stop?
So it's a combination of things. There's no silver bullet when it comes to nicotine addiction. We know from decades of tobacco control and learning lessons from big tobacco companies, they will find new ways of attracting new customers. So a lot of these vaping products and these new nicotine products that we're talking about, whether it be vapes, nicotine pouches, as an example, are owned by tobacco companies like Imperial and others. And so there's a couple of things we need to do. First and foremost, we need to get into schools and classrooms much earlier. We have children as young as in middle school starting, so we need to have much earlier interventions. We also have other tools available to us, like increasing the age to purchase and to sell these products from 19 to 21 years of age. That's a policy nationwide in the United States, and several states have also implemented it as state law. Here in Atlantic Canada, Prince Edward Island increased their purchase and sale age to 21 as a way of curbing not only unintentional sales but illegal sales to underage youth, but also at social sourcing. We know that a lot of young people are getting their products from someone they know who's willing to sell to them or willing to give them the product, knowing that they're underage. And nearly 60% of kids are saying that that's how they're getting their product. We also know that online sales is a huge issue. Many people purchasing online, purchasing flavored products, which is banned in this province. And so we've seen other provinces like Quebec implement their own online sales bans when it comes to some of these products as well. So there are a lot of legislative and policy tools in the toolbox. We just need the political will to have some hard conversations and implement the legislation to support our next generation of Nova Scotia youth.
Those nicotine pouches you mentioned, I've seen an uptick in those, just even in my neighborhood. I mean, you see the after effects, right? You see them, the pouches on the sidewalk.
Yeah, and the ones that are available in Canada are owned and manufactured by Imperial Tobacco.
I did not know
so
that.
Let's make no mistake, these products, these are these companies, which we took to court nearly a decade ago for the health harms that they've caused, which result in Nova Scotia gaining $809 million over the next 20 years in settlement for the health harms. These companies will find new ways of marketing, new ways of attracting customers. The playbook is the playbook. We know what it is. And so we have the tools, we have the evidence, but now through the settlement, we also have the funding. We can reinvest every dollar of that $809 million over the next 20 years in what we're talking about, providing more tools to the government to enforce the legislation we have, providing more cessation to Nova Scotians who want to quit safely. So expanding counseling, peer support, providing free and evidence-based nicotine replacement therapy to anyone who wants to quit. And in addition to that, increasing our policy tools like the age to 21. All of this can be funded and supported by those settlement funds at no additional cost to Nova Scotians.
Is that money earmarked for this kind of thing, or is it just go to general revenue?
Well, right now, Nova Scotia received its first investment or its first payout in August, and it went to general revenues. The opportunity that presents the government of Nova Scotia is saying we can bring down taxes and healthcare costs related to harms related to tobacco and vaping use if we reinvest those funds. And so those funds can be earmarked and reinvested in bringing down that $210 million that is used every single year in direct healthcare costs associated with tobacco. We can really look at the future of Nova Scotia and say, in order for us to have a healthier population that is smoke-free and vape-free, we can take those funds, invest it today, take the policy measures, enforce the legislation we have, and reduce healthcare spending as it relates to these products. We don't want to wait 15 or 20 years and say, shoulda, coulda, woulda, when we have the opportunity in front of us today, and again, at no additional cost to Nova Scotians.
Heather, a little closer to what we originally started talking about, and that's kids. As a parent that's listening to us this morning, what can we do?
So there's a variety of resources online. The trickiness of vaping and nicotine products today is, unlike smoking, where you could smell the product, if your child was smoking, vaping has taken a lot of different forms. There is flavorless, there is scent-free vapes as an example. There's also disposable vapes, which also becomes incredibly difficult for parents with young people at home. These products, have high nicotine concentration in a small little device that they can easily toss for as little as $35. And so for parents, it's really just about having those conversations, but also understanding that, yes, it's not tobacco. However, nicotine addiction can lead to tobacco use. This is a way that, young people are being attracted by these companies. And so taking a really thoughtful approach, having conversations, but also, 811, Your Health NS, there's a variety of supports and services that are available out there to kick the habit safely and through the guidance and support with a quick coach or primary care.
Heather, appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Dan.
That is Heather Mulligan, the Senior Manager of Advocacy and Strategic Initiatives with the Canadian Cancer Society. Time for an update on the news at the top of the hour. On the other side of it, time for the open hour, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Telephone lines are open. Your chance to get in line early, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The open hour is next. Welcome back. It's time for the open hour. The telephone lines are open. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We had a vigorous discussion yesterday about Nova Scotia Power and its ask of us on the weekend when the temperatures dipped down to minus 15 or minus 18, wherever it was that you were, and there was some concern within the utility about maybe having rolling blackouts or issues with transmission because of the temperatures and the demand on the system. We reached out yesterday to Nova Scotia Power, and nobody was made available for us. I did see an interview last night on CTV with Matt Drover from the utility, who kind of explained it as that we share power back and forth between us and New Brunswick and Newfoundland and Labrador and Prince Edward Island, and everybody was kind of in the same boat with regards to expected demand, and in an effort to try and prevent brownouts or rolling blackouts, that this was ask was put out there for people to conserve. And by the way, Mr. Drover did say that they did see a drop in demand. So it looked like Nova Scotians heeded the warning. That all being said, one of the key points that I took away from the interview I saw last night was something that you all had raised here on the program. And that is the increase of electrification of some of the things that we use here on a daily basis. And we had a discussion yesterday about heat pumps. We had a discussion yesterday about electric vehicles, and Nova Scotia Power addressed that last night on the interview that I watched with CTV News, and said that, yes, that is having an impact on the amount of electricity that's being used to charge batteries for cars and to run heat pumps, even though those that have heat pumps were telling us yesterday that unless you have a specific setup, the heat pump doesn't necessarily work great at minus 15 and below. So, again, as I say here on this program over and over again, the listeners to the Todd Veinotte Show are an informed bunch, and you hit the nail on the head and got it right, as they would say, with regards to some of the electrification and the heat pumps that are going on and having an impact on the grid. So I think the move forward on this story, and at least in my world, is, okay, we've identified the problem. How do we fix it? Maybe something you want to talk about as part of the open hour today. I did mention earlier that the budget process resumes today at City Hall at 6 o'clock. Councillors now have all of the numbers. They have the books, as they call them, and will now listen to presentations from different organizations and groups within the municipality of HRM, and will make their decisions on what is in and what is out. And this is the process, folks, where the cutting begins. So something you might also want to talk about there is as councillors get ready to make their decisions, where the budget's cuts will come. And one of the issues I think that will be front and center during this budget debate is happening at the council meeting that's going on right now. And that is the report that was asked for by then Deputy Mayor Tony Mancini after this whole blow up with the province. Do you remember the blow up over Morris Street, right? And the province, the premier not happy with it. The Tony Mancini kind of trying to calm the temperature down, to slow the rhetoric a little bit, and asked for a report for city staff to go out and go back and look at the AAA bike lanes in HRM and try and see if there were ways that we could maybe lower the level of infrastructure required, which wasn't really included in the report. What was interesting. And to see if they could find any savings. Some of the numbers that came out of that report, in case you weren't listening to us yesterday, was that the current system, the current AAA bike lane system, is 59% done, so just under 60% done. And the total cost at this point pegged at $85 million to complete that network. Now, that means of this 59% that's done, there is still, easy for me to say, is still $66 million worth of work that needs to be completed. City staff took that number. They went around. They went through all of the diagrams and drawings and plans, and came back with, I think they identified 3 different areas where they could make some reductions in infrastructure and cost, and they came up with $4.7 million in savings. And as I said earlier in the show today, if City Council asks for a report for savings on a file, and council or city staff returned a $4.7 million savings, I think we would probably be pretty happy with that. But on the bike lane topic, which has been obviously talked about lots here on this show, on a $66 million bill, they found just under $5 million in savings. Now, a penny saved is a penny earned, right? I get that. But to be quite honest, after reading the report over, I was disappointed in what I saw. I'm interested in your thoughts on that as well. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to the phones. Welcome Bobby to the show. Bobby, how are you?
Oh, I'm great, man. How are you?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm just back in Nova Scotia. I've been away, living abroad and living over on the west coast of Canada, and I just have a couple comparables possibly
Sure.
that might shed a little bit of light. I know you guys have talked quite thoroughly about all issues on your show, and I love your show.
Thank you.
I spent some time in South Africa, and then it's in Cape Town, and there's a population there of about close to 5 million people. And what the Power Corporation does there is they have come to grips with the reality, and they've been honest with their population, and they say, look, we have grown beyond our means. Our infrastructure has not been upkept, and so what they have is they have what they call load sharing down there.
Okay.
And so each month, different areas of Cape Town will go into, voluntary but involuntary blackouts.
Okay. So they shut the power right off?
So they shut it off.
Wow.
Yes. And this is, again, to me, okay, trees that fall on power lines, yeah, it happens. Ice storms, yes, they happen. But like for 100,000 people to have their power out, or 150,000 or 80,000 people, like there's just not that many accidents happening, Mr. Veinotte.
Yeah.
So what we have to look at here is we would love to see Nova Scotia Power just come out and be truthful with all of us.
Right.
And just say, look, our infrastructure is horrible, and we need to build more power plants around the province. And you know, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, yesterday the person from Nova Scotia Power, they were kind of passing the buck about responsibility. Listen, none of that is our issue as citizens, right? As taxpayers, we should not be responsible for the management of these crown corporations. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. They need to take responsibility. They need to plan better. So that's all I have to say about that.
Sure.
As far as the bike lanes go, goodness gracious, Mr. Veinotte, the conditions of the roads in this province are definitely the worst in Canada. There is no question in my mind. There is a lack of lighting. Okay, street lights are not readily available anywhere around here. The roads are not painted. There's not sufficient line painting.
I'll agree with you on that one for sure. Yep.
On a yearly basis.
Yep.
There is not adequate signage. There is not adequate, the layout of the. I mean, again, I know there's nothing we can do about this at this point, but the layout of the city is not made for all this influx of people, and especially if the infrastructure improvements are not going to go hand in hand. I'm all about multiculturalism, and I'm all about, I'm a multicultural person, but honest to God, if we keep going in this direction, this place is not going to be fit to live, and unfortunately, the people that have been here the longest are going to suffer the most, and that's something that I hope doesn't happen. But it would be nice to divert some of this bike lane money, and maybe try to fix a few potholes that are along the 101 and the 103 and the 107 and around Metro. I mean, and these are just not tiny potholes. These are horrible. You're going 120, 110 down the highway, and there's potholes everywhere. It is unacceptable for apparently a first world country. The province of Nova Scotia should be ashamed of themselves. And I'm not talking to people. I'm talking to people that are running this place. There's a lack of oversight. There's a lack of planning and the mismanagement of funds. And take $20 million out of the bike lane and just fix some roads. I mean, Todd, have you see the roads? They've been patched for 30 years.
Right.
They're not level. They're caved in. They're uneven. I mean, anyway, that's my rant. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to speak to you.
Appreciate that, Bobby. Have a great day. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Open hour continues after the break. All right, welcome back. Open hour continues. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That's the telephone number. Let's go right back to the phones and welcome Abe to the show. Abe, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
Well, I'm just kind of sick and tired of this city where I guess they could find $85 million to do on bike lanes that we only use few months out of the year. That's probably not even including how much, which I'm sure they didn't brought that amount, is how much they remove the barricades at the end of each summer. How much does that cost our taxpayers as well?
Right.
On top of that $85,000, so that's going to be a continuous cost for us, and raising all the property taxes and everything else. So I think they should really just squash that deal, close it up, and use that $85 million on something that, like the previous caller says, we have a lot of potholes. Like instant for me, I have few vehicles. I've been paying over $4,000 to $5,000 worth of repairs just this year.
Right.
And you know what I mean? I'm sure they have that money they could use it on better places than a bike lane. Or if they really have $85 million to spend, make me a lane to do ATVs on the side of the road too.
Be more fun, wouldn't it?
Oh, my God. Yeah, at least we could use it over the wintertime, right?
Fair enough. Thanks, Abe. I appreciate the call.
All right, brother.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. There is a monster, and I hope that somebody from HRM's listening right now, but there is a monster pothole that has sprung up in the last 5 or 6 days at the intersection of Bayview and Lacewood. When you're turning off of Bayview right onto Lacewood on the corner where the crosswalk is, it's a monster. It's going to swallow somebody's car up soon. And you can't see them when get the snow on the ground like this. The potholes just pop up, and our first caller raised a really great point. It's become kind of accepted behavior, though. Well, the Highway 103. Shout out to all my listeners out there that are traveling on the 103. That thing's a minefield. 102 from Bears from Joe Howe to Kearney Lake Road. It's a minefield. And how many tens of thousands of cars travel on those every day? Back to the phones and welcome Joe to the show. Joe, how are you?
Hello, Mr. Veinotte.
I've been called much worse. I have been called much worse than that.
Oh, dude, no. I appreciate your first caller because he was really intelligent. So
cool.
But Dan, you're the man.
Thank you, sir. What's on your mind?
I'm pissed off.
Okay, me too. Bit. That's a daily thing for me these days.
I'm sitting here in front of my wood stove.
Right.
The only thing that is powered by Nova Scotia Power is my fridge.
Okay.
Right now. I'm on a well, so I mean, when it primes the pump, that's about it.
Right.
Completely comfortable. It's messy. It's a lot of work.
It is,
but it's a lot of exercise, and it's good for you.
Right.
I cut all my wood. Most of the time, it's by hand with a bow saw.
Mm-hmm.
But screw Nova Scotia Power. Screw them. And I think the province should actually do this and say, you know what? Every household has enough radiation from the sun to supply every energy that they need. And I'd like Houston to say, hey, listen, whatever it needs to get done, and get the Mara out of here. Like, honestly. Like I say, Dan, you're the best, man. You're doing wicked, man.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, and take care. And to all you Nova Scotians out there, props up. We're wicked.
There you go. Thanks, Joe. 902-405. Going to put that on a T-shirt. We're wicked. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Joe raises an interesting point, and it's growing up as a kid, we had a wood stove at home, right? And and I'm sure that it's likely the same in many households in Nova Scotia, in some of the urban area, but mostly out in the suburban area, in the rural areas where wood stoves are still predominant. That it's the kids' job to keep the wood pile stacked in the wintertime and the furnace stoked. Right, that was my job, and I got to tell you, when I was a youngster, I hated that job with a passion. Dragging that snow, we had our wood piles in the back of the yard, had to drag it all the way up to the house, used to use a toboggan, the whole 9 yards, right? And bring it in through a chute and then stack it and stoke and anyway, hated it. But I got to tell you, when the power goes out and it's cold and it happens so frequently, I kind of miss the wood stove. I think Joe's onto something there, right? It's expensive. It's likely not the most environmentally friendly way to heat your home, but it's reliable and it works. Yeah, it is work. It's a lot of work. Especially if you're cutting and you're splitting and you're stacking and that kind of thing. But Joe's right. It's good exercise, right? I think that, we had a discussion yesterday, very quickly before the news here. We had a discussion yesterday about solar panels. And one of our regular callers, who's an off-grid guy, explaining batteries and the way that the regulations are. We had that Efficiency Nova Scotia heat pump thing, right? Remember, you used to get a rebate, and you might even still get a rebate to switch over to these heat pumps, which we now are learning are stressing out the grid a little bit. Wouldn't it be something if we had a really good incentive program for solar panels and batteries? Something to think about. I know the province is listening. We're back after the news. All right, welcome back. Open Hour continues. A couple of lines are open if you want to get into the queue to have a conversation. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go right back to the phones. Hello, Noah.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
Good. There's a few things, actually. One, this weather, I'm tired of it already.
You're done, right?
Oh, yeah. See, no, in my books, no longer a word. It's an acronym.
There you go.
No, one, once.
There you got it.
Anyways, that's beside the point. Quick thing about the NHL.
Uh-oh.
If you would have told me before the season started that Buffalo and San Jose would both be in the playoff spot right now,
Right.
I would have called you crazy.
Right.
But, hey, there they are. No wildcard spot.
Buffalo and Toronto tonight, who have lost 4 in a row and are second last in the East.
Yeah, and I'm a Leaf fan myself.
So am I.
Sadly.
Fair enough.
But then again, look what Boston did last year. They were full of injuries, showed off, and now look where they're at. Maybe Toronto could take a page out of that and do what Boston did. One never knows.
One never knows, but it's not looking good at this point.
No, I know, and that's the sad part. But who do we have to sell off is the question.
Yeah.
Carlo's under contract. Kenneth, well, one only knows what's happening with him, you know? So it is what it is. But, I mean, if you look at the standings, and if you were to do, like, the entire league, 1, 3, 32, so on and so forth, Toronto, but I looked at it, and Toronto would actually play at Anaheim first round if they did it that way, which would be quite an interesting matchup.
No kidding. All right, Noah. Appreciate it, brother.
Yep.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I had Hensby on yesterday and was half expecting to hear him railing about his Bruins being in front of the Leafs in the playoffs, but I don't know what's wrong with the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's I'm not a person that subscribes to, well, they're injured. Everybody gets injuries. Every team gets injured players. I just don't know what's going on. And there are several Leaf fans here at the radio station who are equally as perturbed as to what's going on with the blue and white these days. Back to the phones. Hello, Tim.
Hey, how's it going now?
Good. What's on your mind?
Oh, a couple things. Nothing major. I know there's a lot of discourse over the last couple of days about, bike lanes, snow removal, all that kind of stuff. I kind of wanted to speak to a little bit of, the education system. I don't know, see if we can't get all corners of the society riled up right now.
Sure.
Just basically, I had to notice, and this is just coming from a guy with a HVAC, heat pump background.
Yep.
And I've noticed it on a kind of a micro level in my trade itself, but I've been noticing it more on a macro level just with society and schooling in general.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm getting at is I'm noticing in my trade, the technology is advancing so fast. Like I'll speak exclusively of what we do every day, and it's heat pumps.
Right.
And like year by year, the technology itself is changing so fast on us that our trade is finding it very hard. I don't think anyone's admitted it yet, but just from the level of technicians that are out there in the world right now and the skill sets they have, it seems like we're falling behind a little bit in terms of, the tech's advancing faster than we can teach our technicians.
Got it.
So you're going through the what feels like a very archaic refrigeration program. We're learning about manually doing heat loss calculations and all this kind of stuff when you kind of look at it on a bigger scale, and we're not even everyone's using sort of digital tools, AI, a lot of it is at this point, and stuff that we don't really understand. So I guess sort of my final sort of bit of my point would be something to the effect of, I'm noticing it more, like it seems like on like our school system as a whole is sort of falling into that trap where it's like, society and things are changing so quickly around it. Like, is there any plan to bring in, and obviously it may be too soon, but, bring in a course on AI and, basically try to help people understand what's coming. And it just seems like we're sort of leaving everybody behind. That's all. The technology is.
Makes a lot of sense. Hey, Tim, when you when you get apprentices that are coming up or new journey people that are coming into the trade, are they up to speed on the tech?
Kind of. I think it depends on you as a person a little bit now, because things are getting a lot more technical. If you have a kid whose hobby was on the computer and he played video games and he was sort of well versed in that regard, you're probably going to do pretty well, because a lot of the interfaces, a lot of the tools, everything's so digital now. Whereas myself, I grew up working on my own cars and kind of learning it on a mechanical background. So I think you're seeing a lot of guys, especially senior techs, who still have that mechanical background, and they just don't, they've been working for the last 40 years. They're not paying attention to how things change. So then they go to see a new state-of-the-art heat pump, and they're like, oh, what the heck? It's got all these boards. It's got sensors. We are becoming less a mechanical sort of, and I think an automotive technician would agree and sort of echo the same sentiment. We're becoming less mechanical parts changers, and we're becoming more like electronic technician parts diagnoser. Like, you're using your meter a lot more than you ever were. You have 2 or 3 different electrical boards inside a heat pump now versus maybe originally you only had one. So yeah, it's just the technology is changing, and I'm finding we're lagging behind a little bit. So I don't know what the answer is. I definitely don't have it, but I would just like to hear a little bit more about it, I guess. And it just seems like a lot of, whether it's bigger companies within the industry, even the school system itself, I would love to, whether it's apprenticeship or the community college, I would love for them to kind of basically not get with the times, but provide a little bit more real world, more modern training. That's all.
Interesting perspective. Thanks for the call, Tim.
No worries. Thanks.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, David.
Hi, Dan. Just to your sort of point earlier about heat pumps and increasing demand on the electrical grid and sort of problems with Nova Scotia Power generally. I'm all for, the environment and one reason, obviously it's important for its own sake, but also too, it goes hand in hand with energy efficiency, doing more with less energy, which is ultimately how we sort of, grow our economy. But yeah, unfortunately, most of our energy policy / environmental policy kind of works at cross purposes. So I'll use the example of heat pumps. Now, if you have if you heat your home with electricity and you switch to a heat pump, you'll get about a 67%, even more reduction in energy usage, which is great. Although for me, just living in a 1-bedroom apartment, the amount of energy savings I would actually get would be less than the cost of the heat pump, so it would still be actually a net loss to the environment. But sort of the cases, for example, if you have, say, a modern 90% efficient gas-fired furnace, and then you switch to a heat pump being powered by maybe a 33-40% efficient centralized coal power plant, well, you're maybe getting at best 10% emissions reductions, and you're also spending a lot of money to do that. But sort of the other problem is that you're replacing natural gas as a power source with electricity as a power source, meaning you have to increase your supply of electricity. So sort of things like electric vehicles, heat pumps, and electrification generally means we're increasing demand on our electrical grid.
Right, it's a vicious circle, right? Because we need more power, so we need to generate the power, and the way that we generate power creates these problems.
And that's sort of defeating the purpose, because all of the new wind power and solar power, which is great, 100% support it and stuff like that, let's grow it definitely, is going to feed that increased demand. It's not going to replace our centralized coal-fired power plants, which are incredibly inefficient but also incredibly polluting. So like you have a modern gas-powered vehicle, well, it's probably about 40% efficient, and it's burning gas, which is a lot cleaner and more efficient than your sort of centralized coal-fired power plant. and you're sort of replacing that with electric vehicles. And because you have to meet that extra demand, you're maintaining your coal-fired power plants. So, I mean, a lot of our policy should just be basically getting off of coal first. And I mean, yeah, natural gas comes with its problems, but it's sort of the better alternative for right now. And so it's just, yeah, there's a lot we could do in terms of just being rational about how we do it and sort of thinking clearly what are we actually trying to achieve and what are the best ways of achieving that. And that would sort of allow us to achieve those goals, but also do so with greater cost, less burdens, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I think there's often just too many assumptions made with respect to energy policy. And, you know, they say the devil's often in the details, and that happens to be true, especially for technical subjects like energy usage. So, yeah, we just need to think about it a little more clearly, a little more rationally, perhaps.
Appreciate it, David.
Thank you, Dan. Bye-bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The open hour continues after this break. Open hour continues. A number of lines are open if you want to get onto the program. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That's how you access it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Just like Parker did. Hello, Parker.
Hey, Dan. Good morning. Just wanted to circle back to the discussion that we were having about the maintenance of the roads,
sure,
and how bad it's gotten.
Yeah.
I'm to the point where this year alone, like this winter, I've blown like maybe 3 tires. I've bent a rim. I can't, like, the amount of money that I'm spending on keeping my car like on the road, and it's just tires and rims. I do a lot of traveling to from the city to the valley, from the city to like New Glasgow, for example.
Right.
And the roads are just everywhere you go. They're just so bad, and it's so hard now to even drive in the winter at night. Like you gotta make sure that when you're leaving somewhere, example, leaving from the valley to the city, you gotta leave early enough where you can still see the roads. Because again, it's like a minefield. Like you can't go over. Like even if you wanted to speed, you couldn't, because then you're spending the time with less reaction time to dodge potholes and the amount of people I see pulled over on the side of the road for the same reasons and stuff like that. I completely agree. I think we need to take a pause on spending all this money on bike lanes and really just fix the roads, like focus on the roads.
Parker, is it municipal roads? Is it provincial highways? Is it both?
It's both.
Right.
Like again, I spend a lot of time on the roads in the city, on the roads in the valley, on the highways, and it's just everywhere as I go, it's bad. Like, and when you see a pothole, it's not just a small pothole. It's sometimes they're huge.
Right. Appreciate it, man. Stay safe out there.
No problem.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I don't commute on the, well, I do, but just on the last little bit of the 102 in the morning, but I have conversations with many who, particularly coming on the 103 for whatever reason, getting better because they've been fixing that and twinning it. But the older sections, say from Upper Tantallon into HRM, the potholes they're like a perennial flower, right? You get the same pothole in the same spot every year. And then the patch goes on, and then they put the cold patch, and then they put the asphalt patch, and then the first snow or the first freeze thaw cycle, and it's back. It's I don't want to call it an old friend, but it's pretty bad when the same pothole comes back in the same spot every year, right? Back to the phones, and we welcome Keith to the show. Keith, how are you?
Hey, Dan, how's it going?
Good. What's on your mind?
I know that pothole you're talking about.
Yeah, it's there every year, every single year.
I'm talking about the one in Lacewood and Bayview.
Oh, that monster on the corner there.
Yeah, that's. I thought I saw an orange pylon
in it.
There, near it.
Oh, not in it though.
I don't think it was in it. No, it was near it.
It's a big one.
Don't know what good that does when you put something near it.
Right.
Maybe you should put something indicating that there's a hole there. It doesn't seem to be, but
or fix the darn thing.
Yeah, well, that's kind of getting around to what I was going to say. These potholes that keep coming back every year, like in the same places.
Yep.
They're, is there any way that you or somebody could contact whoever it is that looks after the highways or the roads around here and ask them to come on your show, put some questions to them about what kind of pavement they're using, what grade? Like, I don't know anything about it. I heard somebody on the radio on this talk show back a number of years ago talking about there's the pavement. There's different grades of pavement.
Yep.
So what do you think? Maybe have somebody...
Yeah, for sure. We can reach out to the Department of Highways and see if they can make somebody available to us to educate us a little bit about this patching program, because you're right. I mean, if we're getting the same pothole in the same spot every year, it's obviously not working.
Well, it would lead you to think that they're using the same method of repairing it with the same type of pavement. Right. I don't know. Now, and the reasoning for me for the level of the roads, the highways, and just around here, regular streets and that, people say, well, there's so many potholes, and that's true. And when you're driving, well, I don't know about you, when I drive, my eyes are focused on this road all the time.
Right. And, you should be paying more attention to the pedestrians and the cars in front of you instead of looking for the landmines.
Yeah, you got to drive with your eyes focused, like ahead of your engine bonnet, seeing what's coming up. And a lot of time you can get around these holes. Yeah. I try to avoid hitting everything because it just racks your front end of your car and your rims. So, you know what? The reason I'm thinking that there's so many more problems and issues with potholes, and you know what that is, Dan?
What's that?
Traffic.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah, they're busy roads. Hey, Keith, I'm going to let you go. I want to get to more callers, okay? Appreciate it, man.
Okay, bye-bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, John.
How you doing today?
I'm all right. What's on your mind?
First thing, the guy was talking about education. I've been doing a lot of reading, and over the next few years, there's going to be a big requirement for electricians to repair the data centers and stuff like that.
Right. Big powers there, yep, for sure.
Yeah, big power there. And I don't know, I'm just throwing this out there, but what about if you took a data center and built the data center and you were able to drop it into the ocean, like right off the harbor or something, right? Where that would provide a lot of coolant.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens to a lot of these data centers is the heat loss.
Right. No. Yeah. And the power is to keep the place cool, right?
No, the power is for the data centers for like AI and all that.
Right.
That's what the data centers are for, right?
Yes.
And AI is consuming so much energy. They're taking in the States. They're taking away from regular electrical grid and supplying the data centers with it instead. So that's why they have all these friggin' blackouts and stuff like that down the south, because the data centers are getting their way and they're stripping all the extra energy and taking it to them. So they need. I mean, it's going to be an unbelievable amount of energy that's going to be required to do this with the data centers.
Right.
But it's the electricians that are going to be repairing it. So we should get a lot of electricians out there now hired on for jobs. Get them ready now, because it's only going to be a few years, right? It's not going to be that long before AI takes over a lot of stuff.
John, I appreciate the call, sir.
All right, bud.
Thank you. Have a good one. Last word today goes to Mike. Mike, how are you?
Good, Dan. How are you, buddy?
I'm all right. What's on your mind?
I just want to say you hear a lot of people complaining about the actual construction crews and not fixing the roads properly and what kind of recipe they're using. I just want to throw it out there as someone who's worked in that industry before.
Sure.
Nothing is nothing is done that the province or the city doesn't create the plans for. Every road that's built, every pothole that's patched, it comes from the province or the city's engineers.
For sure.
And the construction companies are doing it the way that they're told to do it.
Right.
So just so the construction companies don't take as much heat.
Fair
it's
enough.
not always their fault.
All right, Mike. Thank you.
All right, see ya. Bye.
That's going to do it, folks. We're going to do this again tomorrow. Don't forget it's Wednesday, so that means we're going to shift the open hour to make way for Dr. John Gillis, who will be here at 11 o'clock to answer your medical questions. Putting a data center, one of these great big data centers that are driving all the AI in the world, into the ocean might be something we'll ask our next guest. It's time for Science Files. Dr. Rob Thacker is here, and he's going to answer your science questions when we come back. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. This is time for Science Files. It's our weekly sit-down with our good friend and resident astrophysicist and professor at St. Mary's University, and that is, of course, Dr. Rob Thacker. Dr. Rob, how are you?
Good. Your friendly neighborhood astrophysicist.
There you go. Do you get like a thing on your chest? Well, that's
I've got a thing
right?
in my chest at the moment.
Yeah,
recovering
I think
from
we're all
pneumonia.
getting over
But,
some kind
yeah.
of crazy bug.
Yeah.
But anyway, if you have a question for Dr. Thacker, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. They got to the emails quick this morning, Dr. Rob.
Oh, sounds good.
And the first question comes to us from Joe. And it reads like this. Good morning. I have an astrophysics question for Dr. Thacker. Right
Sounds
down your
good.
alley.
Sounds good.
What role do supernovae play in the universe, and why are they important to the formation of new stars and planets and to the cosmic ecosystem? That's from Joe.
And I swear that's not a planted question.
Because this is like what you're studying, right?
This is basically my research in a nutshell. And so why are supernovae important to the overall development of the universe? And the long and the short of it is, the process by which we create the elements is essentially in the hearts of stars. They're star forges, if you like. They create all the different elements. And so supernovae are a really sort of extreme example of that they are the places where we create the really heavy elements heavier than iron. And so, and if you want to sort of think about something that makes you go, ooh and ah, gold.
I was going to say, because gold is heavier than iron, right?
Yeah. And so gold, for example, is created in certain types of supernovae, the collisions of neutron stars producing supernovae. But although you can get a bit of it in a regular supernovae as well. So these are exploding stars. They're really big. There's a couple of different types, generally. There's actually more subtypes than that, but generally you divide them into two different types. But the main thing that we're concerned about as astronomers is the type 2 supernovae, which are explosions of really big stars. Anything basically about 8 to 10 times the mass of the sun will wind up in a supernovae explosion. And so once it goes off, it's blowing off a lot of material out into the medium that's the space between the stars, which we call the interstellar medium, and it's enriching it with more and more elements, right? And so over a period of time, obviously a very long period of time, hundreds of millions of years, then you reseed the interstellar medium with all of these different elements. And so over the galactic lifetime, you are basically, in a funny kind of way, recycling all of the elements through a series of stars. So as we sit in this office, it's insane, but there's a lot of stuff in this office that has been, at one point or another, part of a supernovae.
Right.
Right? And so that is really why these things are so incredible, because they are creating these heavier elements that we are actually using on the Earth. I dare say there are other alien species out there that are doing the same thing.
Careful.
And all of that would not be possible without supernovae.
You know, I often get the question when I watch a show or somebody panning for gold, when the reason why you're able to pan gold is because it's so heavy, it goes to the bottom and all the light stuff floats off, and you're able to it's in a river. That's the end game for this little piece of an element, but the birth of it is supernova, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, one of the stories I do love to tell, and I put this on social media and it was a big hit, so is that when you look at the gold in your wedding ring, that's something that commemorates the sort of, I'll say, the merger of two people into one.
Right.
Right. And so the ironic thing is that the particular form of supernovae is the collision of two neutron stars leading to a big supernovae, and that produces the highest amount of gold. Right. So the merger of two neutron stars is what we use to celebrate the merger of two people.
Perhaps the marriage of two neutron stars?
Sure, but it's a big explosion. So hopefully your marriage isn't like that.
Do they have a wedding reception after with cake?
That's a few billion years afterwards.
Fair enough. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Well, the first question of the day knocks it out of the park for Dr. Rob. This another email question that comes to us from Dawn, who has been watching, and like I have, and watching the race, the second race to the moon. And we know that there's plans to put people back up there, but there have been some concerns now about the safety of some of the craft that are going to be used to transport Dr. Thacker to the moon.
So this is not particularly new. There's been a number of discussions about the heat shield of the Orion spacecraft, right? And what gets me is this is not really new technology. This is something that's been tried and tested. The main thing is they're trying to do it with slightly higher re-entry speeds. So it's a little bit different. They're trying to do a skip entry, right, which we haven't done before. But at the end of the day, I'm struggling with this a little bit because I don't think it's really difficult technology to get right. Right, we could get it right over 50 years ago. What's the struggle now?
Well, I remember 50 years ago when Columbia was the treat of the week, right? And we were putting this reusable spacecraft into orbit, and all of the discussion.
I'm thinking of the Apollo re-entry units.
But even as early, and I'm putting quotes around early, as Columbia, like I remember the discussion being surrounding these heat shield tiles.
Okay. So that's fair. So with the heat shield on the shuttle, the concern was the fact that they were basically reusing the heat shield, right? And so because of that, when you basically reused it, you would go in and you would service the tiles, replace some of them and not others. And as is well known, one of the shuttle disasters was caused basically by a tile coming loose and then creating basically a plasma torch underneath the vehicle as it came back in. And so that was really the problem there. So it is true to say that, and that's fair comment, it is true to say that heat shields have been an issue for certain spacecraft, the shuttle being the classic example, right? Whereas for Apollo, as far as I know, there were never any concerns with the re-entry of the Apollo capsule.
So, but the science behind the heat shields, is it essentially just a big piece of insulation that protects the spacecraft from the friction of re-entry?
Yeah, basically. And so the challenge with it is, if you don't have everything oriented properly, you will burn up very quickly.
Right.
I mean, that is essentially one of the things that SpaceX is trying to deal with in a different way. Like if you look at basically the SpaceX craft, then they're putting the heat shield on one side, you've got to have it come in at the right angle and so on. So that's difficult to get right. And in fact, they've got it wrong in the first few attempts, like that you can literally see in some of the recordings from those flights. The plasma is cutting through the stainless steel of the wing, the adjustment tips, the ailerons that they have. And so that's not been going well for them. So getting that right is tricky. But again, the technology on Orion goes back essentially to the Apollo missions.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to take a break. Science Files will continue on the other side with a look at the science of water. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That is the number if you'd like to get your science question answered. It's a perfect opportunity to do that. Again, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Dr. Rob, I've got another email question here, and it reads, why does water freeze from the top down? It says, correct me if I'm wrong, but water has the unusual property of having maximum density occur at 4 degrees Celsius. Thus, 4 degrees Celsius water sinks down, and then colder water is on the top, a way that is actually caused by gravity.
But they've just answered the question already, haven't they?
I was just going to say, that feels like a Dr. Rob answer.
Like it's literally answering the question in the question itself. So as water cools from above 4 degrees C down to 4 degrees C, then it does get progressively denser. And so, yes, as it's cooling down like that, then it would go down to the bottom, right? But once you go beyond that 4C point, anything that's cooler is actually going to be on the top. Right. And so inevitably that means you'll have the cooler and cooler water goes to the top. And so as you go through the freezing point, then you have to have the ice form on the surface because that's going to be the coolest water.
Right.
Right. And so that's how it works, which is kind of surprising at the end of the day. And is it the amazing property of water that because of that, you then get the creation of the ice on top, which then acts as an insulator.
Right.
Right. So it's a really sort of like freaky thing. And it's one of the reasons why I think personally that water contributes to the nature of life because it does some really incredible things.
The science of water.
Yeah. No, it's really cool. Water is really amazing.
It's kind of cold. It has to be cold to make it iced on.
Yes,
Dr.
sure.
Rob, it's how it works.
Sure.
902-405-6000, 187.
We can only make that joke in January.
Yeah,
we can't
right.
make that joke in July.
There's a lot of people listening that are done with ice crystals right about now, right? They're done shoveling.
Exactly.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I don't know if you're listening a little bit earlier during the open hour, Dr. Rob. We had a caller who we were talking about data centers and how they're the future with AI and everything else, but there's problems with how much power they consume plus to keep them cool because of all of the computing power that's needed to do this stuff, and the heat is part of the problem with these large data centers. And the caller suggested that we build one and then stick it in the ocean.
So that's already being done.
Really?
Right. Yeah. So there's a couple of places that are trialing this right now. There's a development in Japan, and I think there's development in Finland as well. I think Google is doing the one in Finland, if I remember correctly. And so the idea there is fairly obvious. You use, because basically water has a lot of heat capacity. And if it's cold, you can move a lot of heat from the data centers. But it's not trivial to do that, right? Because you've got to put them in an encapsulated area. If something goes wrong, it's not easy to go and service them. So personally, I'm not convinced that this is going to be a great solution.
Feels like a James Bond villain layer that we've seen in the past, right?
I'm trying to think of a funny little pun in that, but I can't come up with one very quickly.
I mean, it makes sense, right? So, if you put the building that the heat's being generated in a really cold spot, it would certainly help to regulate the temperature.
Yeah, so there's already situations of data centers being built where the heat is recycled and used in other ways. That's been done for at least a decade, probably two. Right. But in terms of just literally using cold water to freeze it, there's a couple of places looking at it. But again, what you've got to remember is these things break. Right. And if you have a lot of things that you need to service on a daily basis, I think in a really big data center, they're swapping out tens of these machines a day. Right. So literally, that's still only about 3,000 of them failing in a year. It's not that many when you've got hundreds of thousands. Right. So I don't see how you're going to be able to do that underwater. Now, they could turn around and say, well, if you just lose it, it's dead, right? And you just work until you reach a certain point, then you pull it up, and then you haul it out. So they do certainly have, because people will know, they already have containers for data centers where you literally ship the container in, all of the servers are inside that.
Plug it in.
Exactly. So in this particular case, you're looking at a container that's waterproof, right, basically, and then you can put them in, pull them out using a crane, basically. So yeah, again, I'm not convinced this is a great solution, but we'll see how it goes.
And recycling the heat is not something that's new either. I can remember working in central Ontario near a nuclear facility where they used obviously a lot of hot water there, and they would pipe the hot water into the buildings around the facility to heat them, right? So.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, again, I mean, when I was doing my PhD, I remember people talking about this. So that would have been in the late 1990s. So that was taken fairly seriously even back then. So it's just ensuring you capture all of the heat that's created. That's the main thing. And so actually, that is a metric that goes into the efficiency of data center analysis now. That they look at how much energy is created and how much is wasted. So that's taken fairly seriously, I would say, by the engineers in the field.
Are the CPUs the major energy users, or is it the air conditioning to keep the room for the CPUs cool?
Both, right? So you're using energy to basically move the energy that's created by the CPUs, right? So you've got to think of it in sort of like heat pump terms. You're basically trying to move that energy somewhere where you can get rid of it, right? And now hopefully you can get rid of it to do useful work, i.e. heating. But in most places still, I would say, not everything, there's kind of like a big... I really wish I should remember what the actual statistic is called, but there is a statistics that's used to measure the efficiency of a data center in terms of how all of the power is used. And so, again, the most modern ones and the sort of highest capacity ones are looking at how much energy is used to cool versus how much energy is actually used to run the place as well, and what's happening with all of that excess energy that's created too. So I know people are concerned about this. I'm not going to give the people who work in the area a complete pass on this, because there's plenty of examples of data centers that are just like pumping out energy, right? Because they haven't thought about how that heat energy could be used constructively. But the engineers who work on this thing are aware of this, and I think in general there are attempts to recover this that are taken quite seriously.
Speaking of energy and grids, Dr. Rob, we've been talking for the last day and a half here on the program about this past weekend with Nova Scotia Power asking us to reduce our energy consumption because they were getting into the red zone when it comes to the grid. I know you've looked at Nova Scotia Power grid in the past. With electrification that we're doing these days, like with cars and with heat pumps and everything else, what's the solution here? I'm
a little bit surprised because I've spoken to people at Nova Scotia Power about this. And so one of my colleagues he's working for a consultancy actually now, he said that they were seeing initially a little bit of a drop in wintertime consumption as people converted electric baseboard heating over to heat pumps. Right, so I can only presume now we've installed so many heat pumps that equation has been broken, right? Because it's probably the people installing heat pumps over oil that's the issue, right? So, but certainly a lot of apartment buildings, for example, went away from electric baseboards to heat pumps a few years ago because, I mean, it's a money saver. It pays for itself fairly quickly for the landlords. So that happened. So I'm a little bit surprised that we're having a struggle with that, because I had assumed that where we would start to see the issues is over the summer, right? Because as people install heat pumps, obviously now you've got a situation where suddenly everyone has a really good air conditioner.
Right, because they're dual purpose, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so I was thinking maybe we'd see a shift from that perspective. But to see it in the winter, I don't know, I'm probably missing something, but I'm a little bit surprised by that.
Generation capacity. I mean, obviously, we can't just run out tomorrow and build a brand new Tufts Cove, right?
Well, so this is one of the really sort of like concerning things about having a reliance upon other places for your power. That when it goes down,
or they have their own demand,
you don't have a control over it. So having more interconnections does help alleviate the risks. Right. So at the end of the day, yes, it's difficult to have or suddenly spin up additional power. But remember, most of the time, we're running significantly below the maximum capacity that's possible. So there should be additional capacity available on the grid. I'd like to know what the red zone Nova Scotia Power is talking about in this case. Again, I'm sure there's a sensible discussion of it in terms of the actual expected online capacity that they have at the moment, because obviously things go down, have maintenance done on them, and so on and so forth. And
well, I think we understand, and we're just a little bit of time here before the break, but I think we understand that the generation capacity, but the capacity of the grid, right, it's finite.
Yes. So there's only so much you can transmit. But the one thing that's an interesting question. I'd love to know if they change the actual amount of power supply over the grid depending upon the cooling ability on the aluminum because if it's cold, presumably it's not going to heat up. I don't know. That's probably not a significant issue, I would guess, because you're running the fairly high voltage.
I just got you launched on a new paper.
No, I'm sure that's not an issue because people will be talking about it if it was. So, but it's just kind of how my brain suddenly works. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. But anyway, yeah, we better go to a break.
Science Files continues on the other side of it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. You have a science question. Dr. Rob's here to answer it. We're going to take a break. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. This is Science Files. He's Dr. Rob Thacker, and he is going to do his level best to try and answer your questions. That's why he comes in here every week. 902-405.
It's fun.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's take a call, Dr. Rob, and welcome Ralph to the program. Ralph, how are you?
Hey, great, despite the cold weather.
Yeah.
Your question, please.
Question/comment, actually. The idea about grid capacity and temperature of the wires is quite plausible, that Rob mentioned there.
Yep.
I know the reverse is certainly true in that capacity is reduced in the summertime because of heat. So the ACSR is basically the aluminum with a steel conductor reinforced that's used for transmission lines. And so, the hotter it gets, the more it sags, and there's issues with relate to that. So in the wintertime, it would make sense to increase the capacity when the temperature's colder.
Yeah, you're going to have reduced sagging as well as the resistance being lower. So, okay, it makes sense.
All right, Ralph, appreciate it.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So is that why there's a bigger concern in the summertime with you're talking about earlier with everybody with their heat pumps now has a great air conditioner?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because those lines don't have the same transmission capacity.
Yeah. So it's actually a little bit of an issue. That's why if you go to California, right, then once you get into the summer months, that's when you start seeing the brownouts because literally they can't supply enough power, right? So for us. Well, we'll see how we do because, like I said, I really thought we'd be heading towards a situation where we have these concerns about brownouts during the summer, right? But maybe we aren't there. I mean, I know that we've stepped back from providing all of the incentives on adding heat pumps, which is a shame because they are a huge impact if we can cut down on the oil heating, right? I mean, we do actually have to replace the oil backup at some point. That's another thing we need to think about. But, heat pumps are awesome.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-825. I know it becomes a topic that Rob and I talk about here a lot, but it certainly is in the mainstream now, and it seems to be getting more and more involved in the daily life of people every day, and that, of course, is artificial intelligence. And during my vacation time, Dr. Rob, I watched a news article that was based off, I think it was a TED Talk, about chatbots and about these now AI companions that people are downloading these apps for, boyfriends, girlfriends, companions, whatever you want to call them, and they're seeing on the backside of that a decline in real human interaction in the form of dating. Your thoughts on that?
So. This is a problem on multiple levels. So it's been well documented that certainly young people are spending less time with one another physically, right? And so most people attribute that to the development of social media and electronic communications, right? I mean, yes, we had the phone 50 years ago, but if you were like me and my family, I was like, no, you're not allowed to use the telephone to call your friends, right? But anyway,
or you got cauliflower ear holding it there for 4 or 5 or 6 hours.
Anyway, so that's well known and documented and is a concern already. If you're now taking away the communication modes to your friends and you're replacing your friends with an AI bot, right? That for me is deeply problematic, and it's deeply problematic because these systems are by design going to give you things you like. Right? You're rarely going to be actually challenged by these systems. They are designed to be addictive. There is no debate about that. That is a reality, right? Psychological profiling is being done on users all the time to give you something that's closer to what you want. In fact, now things like ChatGPT will say, do you like this answer? Would you prefer a different answer? And so on. So all of that is, in my opinion, quite deeply problematic because when it comes to interacting with other humans, we all know they're going to disagree with you at some point or another. And part of being a human is not only being able to deal with a situation where people agree with you, it's really probably more important in how do you deal with the situations when people disagree with you.
Happens here on this show every once in a while.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I know I'm lucky in as much that I'm trying to help people most of the time.
Right.
Right. So, but yes, I have disagreements with people in my field, and
Sure.
some of those can be, can be frustrating.
Vigorous.
Right. But most of the time, as I've said before, argue to learn, don't argue to win.
Right. And sometimes arguments lead to you to start to perhaps do a little more research or a little more digging, and then suddenly maybe you learn something new.
So let me say one quick thing, right? And this is me sort of like giving people the sort of like inner workings of science. Sometimes that can go in the wrong direction, right? Because then you can go through the confirmation bias things and going and looking for the things that fit your viewpoint on something. And
which chatbots are good at.
That's what chatbots are very good at. And so really you have the situation where your confirmation bias, along with what's essentially not necessarily a search engine on steroids, but is presenting information that you are requesting to you in the way you want it, and probably not giving you the information that you would have a problem with.
Right.
Right. And all of those things, in my opinion, are deeply problematic for people's mental health.
And not to mention the fact that these are private companies that are purveying these chatbots, these AI companions, and what happens to all the stuff, the data that you're pumping into these things? Like it's not like it's not like you're asking a question. Hey Google, how many cups of milk do I need to put in my pancake batter? There's some pretty personal stuff that goes on.
Yeah,
in this
and so when you think about the fact that billions of people use Facebook, and they only have they said 150 psychologists on staff. See a problem there, right? And so this is concerning. Now there is this lawsuit going on in the States about social media and addiction, and we'll see where that goes, right? But if you put sensitive information into these things, like people will say, okay, I'm going to go and look at what the actual privacy document is and so on. But remember that many of these companies have been fined for not doing what they say they're going to do with information, right? So I always try and encourage people to be a bit skeptical. And if there's something that you are concerned about and you don't want to share, don't share it. Don't put it into an AI system, right? And I've had this discussion with actually one of my sisters who has used it to talk about things in her life. And I'm like, I don't think you should be doing that.
Right. And, also in this news story that I saw, people were starting to use these companions, these chatbots as ways to seek out mental health advice. And as you said earlier, a system that's designed to give you what you want and to be addictive, super dangerous.
Yeah. Let me be quite clear that I have no problems with properly designed electronic emotional support systems, right? As long as they're designed in the right way by people who are aware of the safety issues involved, right? I don't have a problem with that, right? And in general, I can see there can be use for those, although I still believe that human counseling by experts is probably the best way to go for most people. But nonetheless, electronic systems can be a useful support for mental health care. But at the end of the day, you've got to convince me, right, that you are putting the individuals using your system first, whereas the reality is they're getting this thing for free, which means they are the product. The information that they provide you is the thing you want, right? And everyone needs to think about that equation, right? Because it's what drives the industry.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to take a break and come back. Dr. Rob's here right to the top of the hour to answer your questions. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, a few minutes left here on Science Files. Dr. Rob is in the studio with me today. We're going to go to the phone lines, and we'll welcome Alexander to the program. Alexander, how are you?
Good afternoon, Dan. Good afternoon, Dr. Thacker.
Hi.
Your question, please.
Quick question on comets, specifically ones that regularly visit our solar system, like I guess Halley's would be the most famous, I guess. But as a comet comes into our solar system and comes closer to the sun, it loses quite a bit of mass in the tail, correct?
It will lose a bit, yeah. It's literally getting boiled off, yep.
It's so when it leaves, does it rebuild itself? Because I'm imagining that after a certain number of trips, if it doesn't, it would just fail. It would cease to exist. Correct?
You have just answered your own question.
It's a theme today.
But yeah, so over a period of time, comets lose mass, right, as they go around, and so they will pick up tiny amounts as they go out, but there's really not very much stuff out there for them to pick up. So they're going to come back again and burn off a bit more. And so sooner or later, comets end up basically becoming light and just dying in the sun, right? That usually is how they end up dying, yeah.
Because Halley's has been recorded, for forever, has it not, in our history?
Yeah, so I mean, someone's probably done a calculation of when Halley's Comet will last come around, or when it's most likely to do that, roughly.
But it will cease to exist somewhere in the future.
Oh yeah, I mean, Halley's Comet, I would take a guess. I mean, so the evaporation that we're talking about, I mean, on top of that, you could have something like the comet could split apart as well. That's a possibility. So that happened with Shoemaker-Levy when it went into Jupiter, that broke up. Right, but my guess would be with Halley's Comet, if it's got a period of 76 years, right? It's probably got a few hundred more orbits or so for sure. So there'll be a few sort of like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, I would guess.
No, that's great. I just had in my mind that somehow it could rebuild itself, but there's nothing out there to use.
Yeah, no. There's literally, like, if we had sort of like interstellar clouds of ice and stuff like that, then sure, passing through those might be able to pick stuff up, but that's just not happening.
Appreciate the call, Alexander. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the telephone number. We say hello now to Rob. Rob, how are you?
Hi, guys. Good afternoon.
Hey.
Quick question here. Hopefully I can get this thought bubble off of my head here for you to understand. But
sure.
With the way the Earth rotates, Doc, and the weight of the Earth itself, I'm just wondering, has the planet changed at all with us moving weight anyway, or affecting the rotation of the Earth, any of that stuff?
Oh, you mean like has human construction changed the rotation of the Earth in any way?
Yeah, because we're building concrete and we're heavier over here, we're lighter over here, we're moving resources all over the planet. You know what I mean? I'm just wondering if that's ever at some point affected rotation at all or anything.
So the way we would normally talk about that is what's called the moment of inertia of the Earth. And that's literally where is the distribution of mass on the Earth and how has that changed? And the long and the short of it is, humans have changed things a very, very small amount, right? Where things actually are bigger is changes in the overall distribution of ice on the surface of the planet. And as you know, as we've gone through ice ages, the overall distribution of ice on the surface of the planet has changed significantly to the point where if you look at continental North America, you still have certain places that are rebounding as a result of that. And so the overall moment of inertia is changing more from changes in the amount of frozen ice compared to melted ice that we have. That's changing the moment of inertia of the Earth significantly more than just humans building buildings here and there. And the reason why that is, just think about how big a city is, then think about how big an ice field is and how much mass there is in that. And that's really the key thing.
So you're saying there's a slight change to the actual orbiting or the rotation.
It's more about the actual rotation, but it's not going to be a very significant effect at the end of the day. If I'd try and find it for you. It's like probably fractions of a millisecond or something like that.
Oh, okay. So that has nothing to do with it. I was just curious. So even though we changed that, even fractions, does that make an overall change to the way things are moving and going forward?
So here's the thing that will help, right? So if you're thinking about what's going to change in the orbit, well, the mass isn't changing. We aren't actually pulling more stuff from somewhere else and building on the Earth. All of the mass that we have is here. So when we build something, we're just moving the weight around on the surface. That's why I primarily focused on inertia first, right? Because moving the weight around and changing how mass is distributed does change how things spin. But in terms of the orbit, the mass of the Earth is still the same. You've just moved the mass around.
So unless we go get a big cosmic dump truck and bring something in from away, it's just kind of moving one pile to another pile.
Yeah, and even on a sort of like daily basis, there's probably about a few hundred tons of additional material come to the Earth from space, but that's basically dust that floats down and so on across all of the surface of the Earth.
How about
that's
human beings?
Nothing compared to the overall mass of the Earth.
Which I would imagine is a sliver of a fraction
it's
of
tiny.
the weight. Yeah.
It's tiny.
So
Even though it
wouldn't have
sounds
enough
like a lot, it's tiny compared to the overall mass of the Earth.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate the call. 902-405-6000, 1-877.
Hey, that was Rob and Dan.
There you go. Rob and Dan. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We now say hello to Jacob. Jacob, how are you?
I'm good, guys. Thank you for taking my call. Dr. Thacker, my question is, why does AI love the M- so much?
Oh, that's a really
the bane of my existence. That
interesting
I
question.
asked this because last night my girlfriend, she's applying for school, so she asked me to look over her applications real quick. And I'm reading, like, she has like an introductory paragraph, and I get about 3 or 4 sentences in, and I see an M-, and I go, "Did you put this through AI?" And she says, "Yeah, just to touch it up a little bit." And you would think like it's a Chat GPT thing, but then she had put it through Copilot, so obviously it's an in general AI thing. So why does AI love the M- so much?
So that is ultimately going to be down to training data, right? And basically the style that it's reproducing as well. So, but yes, I think if you go and look at their training data, you will find there is a stylistic preference in the vast bulk of human writing to use M-dashes on average. Now, whether it uses an M- or a comma, because if you look at a lot of the situations it uses an M-, you probably would use a comma, or at least I would tend to personally.
Normally I would too, yeah.
So that's a stylistic thing, and I think M-dashes have a tendency to be used when you really want to sort of like make the reader notice something, right? And so I think if you look at the training data, there's got to be something in there like blogs, magazines, I would guess, that have that stylistic tick, for want of a better term, in them. That's my guess, right?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Jacob. Appreciate it. It's something that it's one of those, and I'm sure you see this too in your day to day when things are coming to you via artificial intelligence. It's one of the key indicators for me is when I see M-, because not a lot of people write with M- in them.
No, so personally, funnily enough, I remember the first time I ever used an M-, and that was like one of my papers in astrophysics, and my supervisor at the time said, "Oh, you should use an M- here rather than a comma because that'll make it stand out." Right, but I don't use them very much in my own writing, and I've certainly noticed that they do tend to be used extensively. And again, I think it's because, again, that stylistic tick must exist in the training data. But
has to, because that's how it learns.
But it must also be the case, I think, that the AI is tuned through the reinforcement learning by human feedback to create a very clear argumentative structure. And my suspicion is, at some point, they have been trained as well by the reinforcement learning to use an M- because it's more visible than a comma is. That's my sort of like hypothesis of how this may have become more common.
But because your AI is trainable, you can train M- out of it, correct?
You probably could, yeah.
So then you can at least hide from my scanners.
Yeah, no, you could. So you would basically create a function that rewards it for using commas over M-.
Very quickly, you sent me an article from the BBC, Dr. Rob, and it was something that I had read myself when I was on vacation and had it marked down to speak to you about. And that was as I was hanging out in the Ring Nebula.
Yep.
I'm kidding. They found it, and these journalistic terms, this kind of drives me crazy. When you say they found an iron bar in space, you're like, what? Explain what the iron bar is.
Yeah, so it's not actually a very good terminology because everyone starts thinking, oh, there's like a rod of iron somewhere.
There's a crowbar floating around in space.
So no, that's not what they found. So the Ring Nebula is actually quite famous amongst astronomers, especially even amateur astronomers, because it's something that one of the most famous nebulas that you can take a photograph with a reasonable telescope. And so this is basically the end point of a star that's thrown off its outer layers. It's basically gone through a white dwarf stage and so on. So it's got this beautiful like ring-like shape. And so people thought, oh, okay, yeah, and didn't really think too much about what was in the middle of it. And so the Weave experiment has gone through and looked in the middle, and lo and behold, they found a lot of iron in the middle. And so it's distributed in space. It's not solid.
It's not a bar.
Right, but it's spread across the interior of the ring in the Ring Nebula. And so what's got people excited is the possibility that when prior to the white dwarf forming, which ends up shedding all of these layers, then you go through a red giant phase, and at that point you may be swallowing up planets and vaporizing them. And so one of the suggestions is that that process may have happened in the Ring Nebula and left behind this sort of like region of additional iron. I think there's a projection issue in that. So obviously you would expect things to sort of like move outwards. So you've got to be just at the right angle to be able to see all of that. But the idea is perhaps this could be what will happen to the atoms of the Earth in 4.5 billion years' time.
And we'll discuss that next week when Dr. Rob returns. Thanks, Rob. That is Dr. Rob Thacker from St. Mary's University, here every Tuesday until 1 o'clock. That's going to about do it for this edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. My thanks to all of our guests, including Dr. Rob, for spending some time with us and sharing their knowledge. Thanks to all of you who picked up the phones, dialed the numbers, and joined the conversation. I truly learn something every day when we do this, and I look forward to it tomorrow as well. Thanks to Vanessa Van Inez on the other side of the glass for doing all the hard work that she does every day to keep this show up and running. Not easy, if you ask me. Have a fantastic day, everybody. Watch your backs when you're shoveling. We'll see you tomorrow. Be well. And remember, be kind to one another.